Blood on its roots. When you have an organization whose roots are dark from the beginning over history, the roots usually supply the life to the tree and then eventually the fruit. And I just want to make this point. The CIA's past, human rights violations in Chile, 80 bloody coups, torture, rendition, and secret prisons were happening in the first 4 years of the CIA. Does that sound familiar? It just happened again, didn't they? Same root, same fruit. False flag terrorist attacks in Italy and more. Assassinations with impunity. Operation Phoenix in Vietnam, they assassinated 26,000 people the press never reported on because they were suspected of being connected, civilians, connected to the Vietnamese. A huge assassination program called Operation Phoenix. Collaborating with the enemy, Allen Dulles and the CIA secretly moved Nazi war criminals into the United States with false papers and made them scientists within the CIA working on behalf of the American government. High-level Nazi war criminals. Allen Dulles actually worked with the CIA director, worked with top Nazi officials. Overthrowing democratic governments, what they've done many times. Politically motivated intelligence leaks. Now this is the past. This is the first 10 years of the CIA. Does any of this look familiar today? Blood on the fruit, on the root, blood on the fruit. Same organization, hasn't changed at all. And we all know about the whole nother day here, some of you know, MK Ultra mind control program, nasty, disgusting stuff. I know one of the ladies whose dad was one of the CIA attorneys at the time MK Ultra was being exposed, and he could not stomach what was happening there. She'd drive him to work every day, and he was just incensed by what MK Ultra was doing. Are they still doing it? Well, I'll let you decide about that one. Operation Paperclip, moving Nazi criminals in. Operation Mockingbird, seeding stories into the mainstream media, in the press. They allegedly stopped that in 1976. No, they didn't. The wording is they can't pay journalists anymore, but now it's voluntary. So, okay, so Mockingbird still exists then. If it's voluntary, and the CIA has ways of making people volunteer to provide information. I know that personally when I tried to put my book out. All right, and Operation Gladio, I really recommend the book Operation Gladio. False terrorist attacks, killed people, made it look like terrorists did it. I want to stress this, the CIA as the central node of the shadow government, just remember that, because I'm going to call for, at the end of this lecture, for the dismantling and the rescinding the National Security Act of 1947, which gave the CIA authority for covert operations. That should be rescinded because of the things that they have done. But the CIA was created through the National Security Act of 1947, which states that the CIA is accountable only to the President through the National Security Council if the President knows about it. Truman later regretted it, and this is the wording. This is the wording that created CIA covert operations. Covert operations are mentioned nowhere, giving the CIA the power to do that. Nowhere. This is what it says. Allows the CIA to, quote, perform such other functions and duties as the National Security Council may from time to time direct. Now, do you hear covert operations, bloody coups, supporting terror cell? Do you hear any of that in there? That's because there's no definition of what the CIA's power was, and there was no restriction on what the CIA could do with this secret budget. Absolutely out of control. I remember when I was in there, it's like, oh my gosh, absolutely out of control. Created without congressional approval. Congress had nothing to do with the creation of the CIA. As a matter of fact, goodness, the Department of State, the FBI, much of Congress were completely against the CIA because they were afraid it was going to be another Nazi Secret Service kind of organization. That's the way they put it. They were afraid it was going to be a national police, secret police was their fear. Truman did it anyway and later regretted it, but it was created without Congress. Now, who represents the people? Who's the only people we have that represent us? It's Congress, right? Constitutionally, Congress is the constitutional voice of the people who run the government, right? The CIA was created without any of that, outside the Constitution completely. Its original form, Foggy Bottom down in Washington, was a single building. What Truman wanted, which we should have gotten, was an objective intelligence agency that collected intelligence and provided it to the President for policymaking. There's nothing wrong with that. It was the covert operations part that went bad. So originally, Truman wanted a bunch of intelligence analysts collecting information both from the field and providing him with foreign intelligence to make decisions. Nothing wrong with that at all. The only problem is the covert action side. It got out of control. This is the size of it today. That's my former home where I used to live. It's massive. Covert operations are massive, largely unknown, their size and scope, and the amount of money that's paid for these things. In comes this out-of-the-box fella by the name of Donald Trump. Donald Trump challenges the NSA and the CIA even before he got in office, if any of you remember that. And Senator Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, comes out and says this, very chilling. If you cross the intelligence community, the CIA and the NSA, have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. Do you understand what he's saying there? He's saying, Mr. President, if you cross the CIA, they're going to get you. That's what he's saying. I heard that. My wife and I, we stopped. We're like, what? Of course, from my background, I was like, duh. but that's what he's saying. The only time in history we have ever heard that kind of thing before was Allen Dulles and John F. Kennedy. Allen Dulles, director of the CIA, John F. Kennedy, said he's going to shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. The only time before where the shadow government has come against an elected president was JFK. That's why we're seeing the war that we're seeing in Washington. I'm going to get into the Russian dossier here in a little bit, and you're going to find out that essentially is a shadow government operation, and I'll show you why. Whatever your opinion of Donald Trump, the shadow government fears being exposed. That's the thunderstorm that's happening in Washington. That's what's going on. They want him gone, terminated. I mean, they're doing a character assassination right now on him and his kids and his business partners. They just indicted Paul Manafort. You all have heard that? Do you know that Paul Manafort, you know what they indicted him for? Colluding with the Russians on behalf of the Podesta Group, which was a Hillary Clinton, that's her former campaign manager. So he's not indicted for colluding with the Russians for Trump. They just indicted him for colluding with the Russians on behalf of the Podesta Group, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. Did you hear that anywhere in the mainstream media? Yeah, it is absolute collusion, but oops, it's on the wrong side. But they're making it look like Manafort has just been indicted because of his connections to Donald Trump. That's not it at all. It's a lie. So